This show is going to be all about toes. Good morning. I'm Grant Cohn. That's former Los Angeles Raiders Super Bowl champion offensive coordinator Tom Walsh. And today we're talking about toes. Apparently, Brock Purdy's out 2 to 5 weeks with turf toe. I've never had turf toe. I'm sure you've coached players with turf toe. This is interesting because it's a quarterback, and Kyle Shanahan won't say which toe it is, so we don't know if he's planting on the toe, driving off the toe. But what do fans need to know about this injury? How debilitating is it?
Okay, first of all, usually it's the big toe. Okay. Now, if it's Kyle's not giving you which foot it is, my concern is it's probably the drive foot of the quarterback, Purdy. So that will be painful for him to push off of that back foot to throw if he has turf toe, because you're talking about a ligament in the big toe that basically gets hyperextended per se, and it's like a rupture, so to speak. Now, I know we've had him in the past at the Raiders, and I remember Marcus Allen had turf toe one year, and our trainer, the late George Anderson, came up with an insert that he put into the shoe to restrict the amount of flexibility that Marcus had in that toe when he pushed off on the ground and everything, so that the hyperflexion would not be exaggerated and strained. So I don't know how well Purdy handles pain, and I don't know how advanced the Niners trainer is in coming up with a means by which to alleviate some of the pain that he's going to feel. But if you're a quarterback and that's the foot on which you drive the throw, and that toe is hyperextended and the ligament is, inflamed and stretched and everything, it's not comfortable. No.
The only experience I have covering a player with turf toe was about 10 years ago. Patrick Willis. In 2014, he had a toe injury and only played in 6 games. And, you think like it's a toe, he'll be back eventually. Never played again. That was it. He retired at 29 years old. And I know Deion Sanders had issues with it, eventually had his toe amputated. So it can be serious, but it doesn't always have to be serious. Like, he could be back in a couple of weeks. Is that possible?
Well, it depends a lot on the severity of the injury, as well as the player's ability to tolerate the discomfort and the pain and the recovery process. But to think about it, if you were to hyperflex your foot and put all your weight forward on your toes, and think about it when you go to push off and run, and think of the force which you exert when you put your foot in the ground. Think about sticking your foot in the ground to make a throw, or sticking your foot in the ground to run. And that's a lot of force.
How do you do that without pushing off your big toe?
Correct. That's the issue.
That's a tough one. Okay. So this isn't the first time that Brock Purdy's gotten injured. He's gotten injured in 3 of his last 7 starts. When he gets injured, he's often scrambling around, diving for an extra yard. He's not the biggest guy. Are you starting to be concerned about his durability?
Grant, I watched a clip of when he allegedly suffered the turf toe injury, and he went head first off the sideline at an angle, and the player who came in from the Seahawks from behind basically rolled up over his foot, his back leg, and I can see where he could have gotten the turf toe at that point, because it looked like his foot was bent forward and to a hyperextension part of the toe. If he would have slid in feet first, like you see a lot of today's quarterbacks go, where you give yourself up, you're going to go in feet first, and then it's like sliding to second base. He would have been free of that potential injury, but he chose to go head first as he was lunging forward, going out of bounds. And I don't know. It's just,
we've seen him do that before too.
I know. I go back to Jimmy Garoppolo when he blew out his ACL against the Chiefs on the sideline. I'm going, quarterbacks have to understand, okay, there comes a point in time where, I've got to go down. I've got to preserve and protect myself. Forget the half a yard. I'm sorry. But,
you're not a tight end.
Yeah.
You don't need to be violent at the boundary.
No. See, that's the problem. You begin to think you're a different animal, a different breed than who you are. You're like a China doll compared to these guys out there who are gorillas and who are going to pound you and punish you. And hey, that's why a quarterback can give himself up by going in feet first and sliding. The league is accommodating, trying to keep you as healthy as possible. So don't put yourself at greater risk by not utilizing the avenues of escaping a hit that the league has given you.
So with Purdy's latest injury, you would put the bulk of the culpability on Brock?
Well, I would have said, Brock, you need to go in feet first. I would have reminded him before the ball game, say, hey, look at, you got to preserve and protect yourself. Okay. Be smart. Don't get into a physical confrontation where you're going to be at a disadvantage, where some guy's going to try to blow you up or roll you over or whatever. Now, he did get hit on the left shoulder earlier in the game as well.
He did.
And that hurt. Well, I could feel that one. I was surprised that the league didn't throw a penalty flag on that, because it looked like the Seahawk player was driving Purdy's left shoulder into the ground first. And that basically, when you body slam a quarterback or pile drive a quarterback, that normally is a penalty as well.
It's true. It could have been a penalty there. Yeah. I don't know. It seems like this is a real issue for the 49ers. They just gave him a big extension. He got hurt last year. He got hurt again this year. They don't spend much money on their offensive line. They don't spend much effort protecting him, and now he's hurt again. I don't know. I mean, how much confidence do you have in Mac Jones this week? Do you think the Niners still can? I mean, how do you think he matches up against the Saints? What did you see from them last week?
Well, watching the Saints against the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, who is very agile, explosive, great movement skills, can run, got sacked 5 times. Now, Mac Jones is no Kyler Murray. Okay. Mac compared to, Kyler Murray's like an iron deer on the lawn. Okay. I mean, the guy's a statue in your mother's yard when it comes to comparing his mobility to Kyler Murray's mobility. So protection is going to be key for the Niners this week. And I don't think you're going to be able to see Mac Jones drop back and hang on to the ball and wait for plays to develop. 1001, 1002, bam, the ball's going to come out. I foresee him throwing some checkdowns early instead of hanging onto the ball for a couple extra beats to wait for a guy to come open down the field. So if I'm Kyle, I'm going to have some quicker patterns in my offense for him. I'm going to have some screens. I'm going to say, okay, hey, check the ball down to McCaffrey, check the ball down to Juszczyk, who can catch and run a little bit. Get the ball out of your hands early. Let's keep your jersey clean. Let's build up the confidence in the offensive line, who struggled last week handling some of the stunts from the Seahawks. They didn't pound them and pass them off well, including that all-world left tackle did not have a good ball game. And, Mac Jones does not have the improvisational skills of Purdy.
Are they going to dust off the old Jimmy Garoppolo game plan?
I tell you, I would go with a heavy dose of shorter and quicker passes, some screens, as well as play action, and try to manage the down and distance to the point where I don't get him into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, and heaven forbid, penalty situations. You cannot expect him to function, holding the ball. Although he does, I like his arm as a deep ball thrower even more than Brock Purdy. But, can I hold the ball long enough and protect long enough for a lot of those deep crossing routes that Kyle likes, where the receivers going transcontinental, taking Pearsall from the left side and running them over the field at 27, 28 yards across the numbers on the far side. That's maximum protection. And, you got to have 8 guys in and a 2-man pattern, and so they don't
have many receivers who are healthy. Maybe they should do some stuff like that.
Well, they got to have a receiver to be able to get over there across the field.
Yeah.
Other than Pearsall, who else is going to be the guy to get there?
Well, we got to talk about Juwan Jennings at some point today. Him or Kendrick Bourne. Watch out for Kendrick Bourne, Tom. He's in town.
Fresh legs.
Yeah, fresh legs. Yeah. I wanted to ask this. Here's what I wanted to ask you before I want to double back to the last topic. when you were a coach, there were 2-a-days. Starters played in the preseason. They got hit before week 1. Now it seems like coaches like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay just want to get their team, their starters, to week 1 healthy. But then they haven't taken hits. And we've seen, at least with the Niners case, a lot of guys take one hit and they're out. Brock Purdy, George Kittle did one sprint and is out. Jawan Jennings hurt his shoulder. Do you think that these like week 1 injuries are somewhat attributed to their training?
Well, there is something to the fact of being quote unquote football ready, contact ready, collision ready, so to speak. And it's a different kind of bumps and bruises than you normally get when you are not involved in playing football. It takes a certain kind of conditioning and response to contact, into potential contact in football that doesn't. Think about this. If you didn't take hockey, there's another collision sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't skate all week and then you put the guy out on the ice going full speed and all of a sudden he gets slammed to the boards a couple of times and bam, the shoulder's gone or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a physically, football is a collision sport, not a contact sport. And so collisions have, consequences.
Yeah, it seems to me that I understand the idea of wanting to get your starters to week 1 healthy by any means necessary, but they're not going to stay healthy if they're not really in football shape. So like the balance is giving them controlled doses of tackling and hitting and violence without getting anyone hurt in practice or preseason, hopefully.
Yeah, we used to always preach about you got to know how to practice. You got to stay off the ground. You got to understand also, as a coach, you make sure the players understand what is the tempo of this drill that we are now running. Is this a thud drill? Is this, a live drill? Is nobody goes to the ground? That kind of thing. No cutting, no cut blocking, no chopping people. You set the parameters. It's even when you go one-on-one versus the defensive backs and the wide receivers, what we used to call two-line. You don't go out there and you don't take guys and have 5 or 6 reps. You say, okay, we're going to get 2 shots each, one with coverage off and one with coverage with bump and run. And that's it. You better get out there and say, okay, we're getting 5 or 6 reps on a guy, because then you expect them to win the run for the roses on Saturday where you can't run them like a nag Monday through Friday. That's the same thing with a player.
When I was out in Henderson with you after the joint practice, we were talking about how the Niners stretch because they had so many soft tissue injuries this offseason. Purdy's isn't a soft tissue injury, but Kittle's is. Kittle's almost 32 years old. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. And before halftime of week 1, I don't know if he blows out his hamstring, but he's out for 4 weeks at least. I mean, soft tissue injuries are supposed to be more preventable. What do you make of that one? Is that just Kittle getting older?
Well, not only that, the other thing is also, what are the players doing between series to be able to keep themselves warm?
Smelling salts, apparently.
Well, yeah. If the opponent has an extended offensive series and you're on your offense and you're on the sidelines and you're sitting on the bench all day, you're cooling down. You've lost that lather that you had worked up previously. Maybe you should have some bikes on the sidelines. You should have maybe some jogging pads or something like that. Allow players to run some strides so that they don't come from a standing position after 8 or 9 minutes of the opposing team being on the field, and you're on the sideline plus a TV timeout. You haven't been on the field for 12 minutes and you've been standing, then all of a sudden now you got to go out and sprint top end speed. So my concern is, what are you doing in between your offensive series to allow the players' muscles to stay warmed up, to stay stretched, to stay loose, so they can go back out and think about this. It's dynamic explosion and acceleration on the field. You've been standing on the sidelines, you jog out to the field, and the first play, bam, you're going full speed.
And when I saw him limp off the field, he had run deep down the field. So they either had him running a clear out route or they were trying to take a shot to him and it didn't work out.
Correct. And then he pulled up, and you could see when he started to get a little bit ginger in his stride, you knew something was wrong. And the other thing, let me say this also. Today's players are so physically fit and have such low body fat and are so wound so tightly with the amount of muscle mass that they have on their ligaments and their bones and their tendons that it doesn't take much for them to get tweaked. You know,
Yep.
It just some of these guys are gassed after the first quarter. Um, and I remember even in 2006, we had players in training. They couldn't make it through stretching in the first phase of practice, and they were already gassed. And they're 245-pound tight ends, and they had 5 and 6% body fat, which is not enough fuel for the body. They were gassed. They were done by the first phase of practice.
Interesting.
They had no.
They were bodybuilders, not football players.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I used to kid them and say, "Hey, look, you're not a underwear model. You're a football player. You got to have some fat on your bones to be able to make it through a practice. You can't be some slim, physique guy with 6% body fat and think you can play football."
All right, back to Mac Jones. What's interesting to me is that for the last couple of years, a lot of people, the last two, Brock Purdy's been sort of up and down, and people have said, well, he has to hold on to the ball. The offensive line isn't good and people aren't getting open. He has to try to make plays and make something happen because the scheme isn't working. Well, Mac's not going to do any of that. Mac's going to try to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. He's going to stay in one spot. And I guess we'll learn, has Brock been carrying the offense, or has Brock been going rogue and trying to play superhero ball the last year and a half? I guess we'll find out.
Well, the bottom line to me is that if I'm Mac Jones, I will not be adverse to checking down early and getting the ball out of my hands. And Kyle, as the head coach and the play caller, cannot have the mentality that he is going to browbeat Mac about holding the ball, trying to get it down the field to Pearsall or Jennings or whomever on 15, 18, 22, 25-yard patterns. Kyle's got to understand I've got to coach based upon the quarterback I have and accommodate and adjust what I'm doing offensively to fit the skill set and the mental temperament of Mac Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be an interesting opportunity for Kyle Shanahan, whose stock is a little low right now, lower than has been in a while, for him to remind people what he can do with the backup quarterback. This is the guy he wanted a few years ago. Mac Jones has been a starter. Brock Purdy's getting a lot more credit for the offensive success these days because he's rolling out and throwing across his body. Maybe Kyle can remind us what he can do with a guy who can just execute his system.
Well, the other thing, too, is now when you watch Brock Purdy, he's going to hang on to the ball longer because he's going to want to push the ball down the field. He's going to want to appease Kyle and get the ball on those deep ends and the deep crossing routes. Mm-hmm. If I'm Mac Jones, hey, if the opportunity presents itself, I'll hang on to the ball to try to make that throw. But if there's any pressure and I feel the pocket collapsing, I'm going to get the ball out of my hands and allow a running back or a tight end or an underneath receiver to catch and run after the reception rather than taking the hit in the pocket. And then the other thing is, remember now, Mac Jones is one hit away from whomever the next quarterback is going to be on that roster on Sunday.
Yeah, that's his government name, whomever.
Yeah. See, so therefore, keeping Mac upright and keeping Mac clean is of
the season depends on it. Yeah. This season depends on it. And they did not keep Mac upright in the preseason. He hurt his knee. He had a brace. He missed some time. So this is going to be a big test for everyone on the 49ers and Mac himself. Stay upright. Check the ball down. At least you got Christian McCaffrey. You got the best check down option in the league. Use him. Brock did.
And then I would use, if they're going to stay with 21 personnel, I wouldn't be afraid to check the ball down to use check, throw a couple screen passes or a couple check downs or a couple Texas routes to use check. Take your drop, bam, the ball's gone. Hit your back.
They're paying him enough.
Yeah. Earn his keep.
Use them. Use check. Okay. Now that we are getting a better picture of who's in and who's out, would you expect the Niners to win this game without Purdy and Kittle? And if you do think so, I mean, first question, do you think they'll win? And two, what do they have to do to pull this one out?
Okay. Here, the thing about it is, I went back, I'm watching that Arizona New Orleans game, and you know what? Juwan, was it Johnson, the tight end for the Saints?
Yes.
He had the ball in his hands in the end zone and then went down on his back. And that was the game-tying touchdown. Mm-hmm. So that's how close that game was to be 2020 going to overtime. So the Saints were not, even though it's a first-year program in terms of new coaching staff, Kellen Moore and those guys, and the Saints don't have a lot of star power. They got Spencer Rattler playing quarterback. I just, I don't see a high-scoring game from the Saints. I think the Niner defense will do a good job of controlling everything. But the bottom line is, can the offense stay away from the penalties, the sacks, those issues that are negatives that are going to put them in longer yardage situations so that Mac Jones can, quote unquote, handle the game situations in normal down and distance situations.
Yeah. It seems that, Ricky Pearsall's a good option. Christian's a good option. Juszczyk's a good option. It's 3. But without Kittle, someone's probably going to have to step up who didn't do a lot in week 1. And who would you think that guy needs to be? Or who would you be looking at as a play caller?
Well, the other thing is I've got to be able to get the ball to Juwan Jennings a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I know, he could be in Kyle's doghouse or the Niners' doghouse because of his quote unquote holdout or hold in or whatever you call it, or his calf injury. No one knows the truth about the whole thing. The only guy who knows what the real issue is Juwan Jennings and or maybe his agent. So other than that, you got to just right now, you got to play football. Get rid of all the theatrics and all the politics and just focus on the game. I got to get him in the game plan. The guy can catch the ball. He doesn't have great speed. So I know I'm not going to sit there and, his best route over the years has always been the square in. He runs it well. He reads it well versus zone to zone. He at times will be successful getting open versus man coverage. But I tell you, I've got to get him in the game. If I'm missing Kittle, now I got to be concerned about, are the Saints going to play a cover 2 shell and double both wideouts high and low? And then because I don't have a tight end who can beat linebackers in coverage. So, how am I going to free up a wide receiver to be able to get him open against a potential double coverage?
Well, let's look at the grease board. This is hold on. We're going to call this segment Playbook Breakdown, powered by Pass Reps, where we make you smarter about football every week. And with Pass Reps, you can actually practice calling plays before Sunday for only $1.99 a month. Just go to passreps.com. Okay, here we are. Let's look at this play here. This is from 11 personnel, although you got McCaffrey in the slot.
Correct.
What do you like about this play for Jennings over at Z?
Correct. So we can stay 21 personnel. I got Juszczyk at fullback for protection purposes. And then now, even though Kittle's not playing tight end, I can take the tight end and run him across the field. And now I've got to have isolation where I've got Jennings on the right side as the flanker, one-on-one on the square end. And then the good thing about it is I got a high-low where I have McCaffrey coming across the field on a shallow cross where he's underneath Jennings on the in route. So I've got a good high-low right there where if Jennings is not there, I can just check the ball down to Christian underneath and let him catch and run against the zone coverages.
And on the backside, you got a nice little Texas route from Juszczyk.
Correct. Basically, he can trail because when McCaffrey goes across the formation like that, you see it a lot where he'll shift up late into a double position, like up in the slot up there. And then also, if a linebacker walks out on him, you got a chance to think it could be man-to-man. If the safety jumps out there, you got him. You're thinking man-to-man with linebackers covering the tight end.
All right, let's take a look at it in 3D.
You see, there's your spot. Look at the hole right there for McCaffrey coming across. Everybody's cleared out underneath. You can check the ball down. If I can't get the ball to Jennings on the square end at 15 to 17 yards, I can just bring it straight down to McCaffrey underneath and let him catch and run.
Every week, Tom puts together a fresh game plan inside Pass Reps with updated rosters, new opponents, and real plays from the NFL level. So you can step into the offensive coordinator's role for less than $2 a month. Link is below, or just go to PassReps.com. Let's check. Let's run the play one more time. I think I like that Christian McCaffrey in the slot running a shallow cross. I feel like we don't see him do that very much.
Well, they do a lot of option routes with him, but this time he can run with a high-low over the top of Jennings. And see, look at when you hit your zone there, all of a sudden he could just choke his motor versus a zone. And when you look at it from the quarterback's perspective, in this case, Mac Jones, as he's reading, you can go to the quarterback's vision, you can go to the end zone view, you can put yourself in Mac Jones's helmet and see what he sees as he's dropping back.
Yeah.
And see, Kyle loves to trade. Now, see, look at right there. You got a good picture. Bam. And then now look
James
at the
coming across.
Also, you look at Juszczyk, who comes in behind. There's nobody there in the zone. So if I'm Mac Jones, I could also just dump the ball down to Juszczyk right there over the left tackle spot and just dump it off to him and let him catch and run and get 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah. But I do like getting the ball to Jennings over the middle. I mean, I don't think Pearsall and McCaffrey are going to be enough. It's either going to be Jennings or Bourne running this dig route, and that's going to be really key in this game.
Yeah. Well, and Kyle loves to throw the ball in the middle of. He likes those chunk passes, 15, 17 yards. He likes the 22 to 26 yard deep crossing routes. He's not a vertical guy throwing 9 routes.
No.
Go route on the outside. So he likes to go across the field. At angles, diagonal routes, and things like that. That's more of his offensive philosophy. And so this is one of their basic staples in their passing game. The deep crosser by the Y, followed by the Z on the square in at 15 to 17 yards. And they can do it off of play action if they want.
Play action. Yeah, from under center. Yeah.
I could be in a 2-back set and make the fake on the strong side. And then have McCaffrey check through.
Because the play action holds the linebackers, the corner route occupies the safeties, and then the wide receiver comes doing the dig in between.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you guys just saw the breakdown. Now go test your own football IQ. Pass Reps updates weekly, $1.99 a month. The link's below. Don't just watch the game. Call it. PassReps.com. Okay, I got more questions for you. You saw Christian McCaffrey in this game. 31 touches, 22 carries, 3.1 yards per carry, but almost 150 yards from scrimmage after not really practicing during the week and having a calf injury flare up. What did you think of Christian? What did you see from Christian? How would you assess what he did, how he looked?
Well, there are a couple of runs that he made basically on the toss plays that he showed some burst and some acceleration, but a lot of the time I didn't see a lot of crisp run blocking up front. And so he got nailed for a 1-yard loss, a 2-yard loss. He got hit in the backfield, and he didn't even get, out of the tracks.
That's true. He was getting nailed by 2-3 defenders at a time.
I know. And so I think a lot of the lack of success that he had in really being able to explode in the run game was due to the failure of the Niners offensive line to block clean on the called plays that Kyle was given Purdy to run. And so,
he didn't really get a chance to get out of his stance.
Correct. And that's the one thing about, we look at the running backs average, say, oh God, he only averaged 3.1 yards per play. Well, how many times did he get nailed behind the line of scrimmage? Just like Walter Payton and, Barry Sanders and the great backs in their era days, where they made more guys miss behind the line of scrimmage, due to faulty offensive line blocking, and they were still great backs. But after a while, it's tough.
Yeah. It's not like Brian Robinson Jr. did much better. This was an issue. They didn't re-sign Aaron Banks. Trent Williams had an awful game, and the blocking just wasn't good.
Correct. And the thing about it is, now you can attribute some of it maybe to say, well, that's the first game of the season, and we've got guys who haven't played in the preseason game, so they're basically, out there in the first time all year, they're going full speed. And hope there should be a tremendous improvement between game 1 and game 2 performance. because they should be more in tune with the speed of the game, more acclimated to what it's going to take to be effective. And they've had a chance to critique themselves looking at their tape during the week for what they didn't do well and what they did do well, in pass protection as well as run blocking. And so hopefully, they'll perform better. Now, Saints run a 4 defense, not a 4-man front. So now there's an extra bubble, in the defensive front. Now, of course, on the other hand, you're looking at Brandon Staley, who's the defensive coordinator for the Saints, and he's the head coach of the Chargers. And then last year he was with the Niners. Now look at the guy; he should have a clue about what Kyle likes to do.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, it seems like we've been talking about this. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. At one time, was he not a big proponent of a 5-man defensive line?
He was. And now all of a sudden the Niners are doing it.
I know. And so, see, I would not be shocked if he sticks that in against the Niners on what he thinks are rundowns.
Yep.
To give the Saints that extra bulk in the box so that forcing Kyle say, okay, you want to run the ball? Hey, I'm loading the box. I'm putting more meat in the box and getting into a guessing game with Kyle as to when the ball is going to be run to try to put Mac Jones into 2nd and long, make it 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. And then, Kyle says, hey, well, geez, do I have to pick it up and throw it, or do I risk another run and then end up in 3rd and long? So there's going to be a little bit of a chess match between those two that try to outguess each other from a strategical perspective as to, what kind of a front that the Saints are going to show.
If I were game planning with Brandon Staley to prepare for the Niners offense, it seemed like I would want to load the box and force or encourage Kyle Shanahan to put the game in Mac Jones' hands as much as possible. I want Mac Jones to throw 45 passes.
And the thing about it is, based upon the way the Niners, struggled a little bit in protection last week against all the stunts that Seattle was running, if I'm Staley, also, I've got some games and some twists and some wedges and some 3-man games and some 2-man games that I can exploit against the Niners front and see if they can pick them up.
Okay, let's go to the defense for a second. Robert Saleh had his guys ready to play as he did in the preseason, gave up just 13 points, wasn't facing the best offense in the world. But what did you think of what Robert Saleh was able to do week 1?
I did. He did have some good pass rush schemes. We had talked previously about Coach Saleh's affinity to be able to give Bosa isolated on one side of the pass rush, and then he runs a 3-man game on the backside. Then he brings a blitzer from the secondary off the slot, and maybe also from a linebacker with Warner, and ends up getting an advantage that way. So he's going to have a creative way to put pressure on this young quarterback, Spencer Rattler. And I tell you, last week, I think Rattler threw 46 times.
Yes, he did.
In Arizona. And, Kellen Moore, former quarterback at Boise State, and in the NFL for a while as, a backup and all that, a bright guy, young man, but 46 throws with Spencer Rattler. I mean, it's not like I'm got Peyton Manning throwing 46 times or Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's a quick way to lose.
I got Spencer Rattler throwing the ball 46 times. And so, yeah. And I got Kamara in the backfield. And he's a McCaffrey kind of guy, running choice routes, option routes, dodge routes, and things like that. So, he's a good weapon to have to help your quarterback out. So we'll see what happens. But I think Saleh's going to have an answer.
I think he will. I mean, now this defense. Now, what's interesting about the Saints to me is that their offense has more weapons than the Seahawks offense has. I mean, their offensive line seems okay. Their running back used to be really good. I don't know if he is anymore. And they have a tight end who's pretty good and a couple wide receivers. It's more than the Seahawks had.
Yeah, the only thing about it is, is for Spencer Rattler to complete more than 55% of his passes. Can he get up into the 65 or 68% completion percentage to where, they can make something happen with the passing game?
Yeah, you'd think with such a good receiver out of the backfield that he'd be able to do it, but maybe he's just not that good.
Well, in these kind of ball games where you're having low scoring ball games, it's imperative to keep the drives going, to keep the sticks moving. As a quarterback, I've got to be positive about checking the ball down and forcing Niner linebackers and safeties and or corners to tackle Kamara in space. And hey, catch and run. I've got to get the ball out of my hands and force the defense to respond and be able to make the play.
Well, it's also going to be interesting if this is a low-scoring field goal fest. Jake Moody out. Last time we did a show, we were talking about the Jake Moody effect. He did the 49ers a favor, missed some kicks in a game that they won, and now he's gone. They have Eddie Pinheiro. Big upgrade?
I don't know. Until you see him out there to kick, you're not going to know. I mean, there are no gimmies anymore, when it comes to kickers. It's like, I think was it a great golfer once said that the toughest 5 inches on the green for a golfer is the 5 inches between your ears, And the same thing with the kicker. I mean, a kicker is so much like a golfer. I mean, we used to always talk to the kickers about, hey, your foot is like an iron.
The pendulum. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an iron. You're like your foot is like, a golf club.
Yep.
It's your swing. Yep. So
I couldn't do it.
I
couldn't do it. I'm so erratic. My dispersion is not good, as they say. Moody's dispersion was not good. Moonman says Brock Purdy is becoming the new Bob Sanders, always hurt. Well, he played different positions. Bob Sanders, good safety for the Colts when I was a kid. Jimmy Ezra Goldberg says, yo, Grant, I'm a super fan. R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. Yes, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. That was senseless. Denial says, we have a mediocre, undersized, average arm quarterback with elite processing skills, quote unquote. You can purchase that stock if you want. Stock down for Brock after this latest injury? If you're making $53 million a year, you got to slide. You got to protect yourself. There's too much at stake.
Self-preservation is rule number one for the quarterback, okay?
That's right. Harkin says, new season, same old crap. New season, same old crap, says Harkin. Dangerous Dave says, G out here killing it. Shout out to James. Forbidden Baja Blast says, I played D3 college football as a guard, and I got my toe taped for turf toe every day for 3 years. You absolutely can play with it. Depends on what the Niners want to do and risk. Okay, Forbidden Baja Blast. Sean says, did Purdy make a business decision he can now afford to make, especially without Kittle, or did they shut him down? Seems risky to let Mac get a look for 2 to 5 weeks. I guess we'll never know. Nobody knows. It's a good question. All right, let's do some prize picks for tonight's game. We got, hold on, wait a second. Boom. Oh, you're not there. There you are. Where you go, Tom? Okay, there you go.
Okay, don't worry about it.
So we got Packers and Commanders tonight. Jordan Love against, well, they'll start off with Deebo Samuel. All of a sudden, he's looking pretty good. Do you think he'll have more or less than 54.5 receiving yards against Green Bay?
For Deebo?
For Deebo. 10 targets last week.
I will say fewer.
Fewer. That's grammatically correct as well. What do you think of Deebo week 1?
There were some things he still can do.
Yep. That's a generous thing to say.
Yeah. But his resume is getting, a little bit dated. So, you've got to pick those spots for him and call those routes for which he will have success. Otherwise, it's worthless.
Okay. How about Jordan Love? 234.5 passing yards, more or less, for Jordan Love. 234. Last week he had 188.
Yeah, I will say fewer for him also.
They don't throw a whole lot.
No.
What about Jaden Daniels? 225.5 passing yards, more or fewer?
If they can keep him upright, because they got a rookie right tackle, if I'm not mistaken, going against Micah Parsons tonight.
Yes.
If he can stay up, he can throw.
Okay. More for him. You know what? Before we move on, why don't we go to, hold on, the 49ers. Let's get some Niners picks. Okay. View game. There we go. Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, Jake Tonjes, Eddie Pinheiro. Where is Mac Jones? There's Mac Jones. Okay, Mac Jones. 203.5 passing yards for Mac Jones, more or fewer?
I'll say more.
He's going to have to throw. They're going to force him to throw.
Correct. If I'm New Orleans, I am going to stuff the run and make it all sit on Mac's shoulders.
I like that. Let's make those our picks. Take a look at them. We're going to flex the play, put down 20 to make 120, submit the lineup. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Focus on what sports season it is. Oh, wait. PrizePicks will give you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. So win or lose, you'll get $50 in lineups. Use promo code COHN when you play. That's code COHN. All right. Tom.
Yes, sir.
Big picture question, last question of the day. The Niners, once again, are among the most injured teams in the league. Didn't take long. They're decimated. If they were to lose for their next 5 games without Purdy and Kittle, and the wheels sort of fall off and they don't make the playoffs, would Shanahan get a pass because of the injuries?
I would think that he would put his training staff, strength coaches, stretch coach, flex coaches, and all those people under the guillotine before he himself takes the bullet. So, I mean, he's changed coordinators on defense and multiple times. They've already gone through how many different strength coaches and other training locker room staffs have they turned over in his tenure as head coach?
They've had a few different, I think they've had 3 different head trainers, although the current trainer, I think, has been on the staff the whole time. But they used to have Ben Peterson, who was an NHL guy, and they had some other guy who didn't last long. So 3. I don't know, if I were Jed York, would you feel like, okay, you're just going to fire the training staff and hire a new one? Okay, I feel great. Still have confidence in you.
My concern would be, I would sit down with Kyle and say, hey, let's look at how we practice and our routine, our regimen, what the demands are being made on the players and how strenuous it is. Are they getting sufficient amount of fluid and rest between reps in practice? Are we pacing our practice and varying? It's like if you're a sprinter, you just can't sprint at full in speed all the time.
Right.
I mean, you're a track guy. Your father was a track guy. So somewhere along the line, you've got some strides and you've got different intervals at which you were running rather than top end speed all the time. So somewhere in my practice, even in two-a-days, which it's like a misnomer to call them two-a-days nowadays because you're not wearing pads twice a day. You're not going full speed. But what are we doing to keep the players fresh? What are we doing in terms of electrolytes? What are we doing with their stretch and flex and warm up as well as warm downs after practice? What are we doing? Preventive measures, post-practice, rehabbing, massage therapy, all those kinds of other aspects to be able to keep them in a more fit situation where, I wanted to ask you this. Any other quarterbacks in the league go down last Sunday who are out this coming week? I couldn't find one.
Not that I could think of. Yeah.
I mean, it's ironic. They lose a starting tight end. They lose a starting quarterback. They got a banged up running back already. How healthy is Trent Williams going into Sunday's game?
I don't know. He missed practice yesterday with the vet day / knee. So we'll see if he practices today. Ben Bartsch is day-to-day with the knee injury. That's 2/5 of your offensive line. Jawan Jennings has a shoulder injury, didn't practice yesterday. That's like more than half of your offense. Correct. In 1 week.
And I go through the whole injury reports across the league, and guys are calling me, talking about injuries and who should I get as a backup quarterback and everything. There's no other club in the league which has a mass unit, for a roster like the 49ers have, week in and week out.
And it's year after year after year after year. You figure a head coach would find a solution after a decade, but it's the same problem.
Well, the thing about it is, if Kyle doesn't change the way that he scripts and structures practices, it doesn't matter who's going to be the training staff, who the strength coaches are, the flex coaches, who your physiotherapist is. it's not going to matter until he changes the way that he orchestrates and runs practices and his demands that he puts on the players.
Yeah, and it's been 9 years and it hasn't made a material change yet, at least one that's worked. All day, every day, Kim says Brock's, oh, I'm not going to say that. He's a wuss straight up and down. Couldn't be like this back in Coach's day on the Raiders or Niners, 53 mil. What a freaking joke. Best time to be a quarterback. All right, so some Niner fans are upset that Brock's not playing through it. Do you think that's legit? We don't really know how serious. This could be really serious.
You know, I've got to honor and respect what Brock says. If the guy's hurt, he's hurt. There's a difference between being injured and in the pain levels and being sore from contact and things like that. And I would think that he will want to be on the field if he can be.
I mean, this ended Patrick Willis' career. He was definitely not a wuss. David LOL Lombardi donates $10. That is very generous of you, David. I appreciate it very much. Well, I got to go take the train down to the facility and see who's there. It's going to be about 30 people on the practice field. It's going to be interesting.
Well, they're fortunate to have as big a practice squad as they do now in the league with 17 or 18 players, because the Niners need that to be able to practice because half their regulars are not starting anyway.
That's a good point. That's a good
trash cans to be defensive linemen and offensive linemen, and put dummies out there, popsicle dummies to be the linebackers because they got nobody to line up.
Well, it's a rough week, but still the Niners are expected to win this game. I think they opened up as 7-point favorites, and now they're down to like 2. But they're still favorites on the road, and if they lose, it'll be a very bitter defeat. They have no excuse to lose. We just told them how to get the ball to Juwan Jennings over the middle. Watch the show, Kyle. Tom and I, it was mostly Tom. Thank you very much, Tom. And again, go check out passreps.com, $199 a month. And we'll be back next week on Thursday. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thanks, Grant. Have a good day.
Take care.